Yeah.
So can you think of like something that you might need to do today before the day is out?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I would class that as a short-term goal.
Yeah.
But have you thought about how you're going to get there in the right time and making sure that you get that done?
Yeah, like putting the recycling out. Nobody likes missing the bin.
Okay, and that's not autonomous,
No.
so you have to think about the situation. What are the consequences if you don't put the bin out?
Yeah.
What are the consequences if you do? So the consequences if you do is that, as Paul did the other week, he clapped the bin men.
Which was a bit of a slow clap in the bin.
Yeah,
It was a
we'll talk about that another day.
That was a misunderstanding because I'd gone into coaching, football coaching mode with children.
Clapping the bin men.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Shall I do my usual weather forecast?
I think you should, yeah.
Okay, it's windy and slight cloudy with some sunshine in the background.
It was drizzling earlier, but now all is looking better. But up here at
Thank you,
HQ,
Michael Fish. We can move on now, can't we?
At HQ, the weather in Yorkshire is very variable.
Yeah.
Very variable. So,
anyway, enough of our banter.
enough of our banter. This week, what are we talking about, Mr.
Well, I've decided, which I'll put that in, to talk. Well, we are going to talk about decisions. And
It was a big decision.
it was a big decision to talk about decisions, so we have decided to talk about decisions. And the reason probably why we're coming to you from this angle today is to try to understand, obviously with what I do as a coach and as a trainer, people struggle to make decisions, whether it's making decisions regards how they maintain a healthy lifestyle, or what they're going to eat today, what they shouldn't be eating today, and also as well just making decisions and not procrastinating. So we're going to cover procrastination.
Oh, procrastination and perfectionism.
Huge word, okay? But yes, there's lots of things going on in the world at the moment, and we all have to make better decisions and try to make the right decisions. But when I mean the right decisions, we'll go into that a bit later as to whether there is wrong or right decisions, because it's quite a big area of today's conversation.
Absolutely. Should we start by sort of defining decisions? Because I mean, there are some huge decisions we make in life. There are some small decisions. We're constantly making decisions as human beings, aren't we?
We are, definitely. So for example now, I'm going to throw this at Paul, because it was something I did with one of my clients last night.
Go on then.
Everything that we do in our life has an ending, has a goal, okay? And each of those goals needs a decision making. Some are autonomous, some are not. So here's an autonomous one for you. You're going to Costa Coffee.
Yeah.
Sat there.
Other brands are available.
Whichever coffee shop you want to go to. And you need the toilet. Just need to go for a wee. I need to go for a wee.
Okay.
Now, you sat at that table.
Yes.
You've got your coffee in your hand. You sat with maybe a friend or your children or whatever.
Yeah.
How many decisions, how many questions do you need to ask yourself before you've been to the actual toilet? Can you go through them? So,
blimey.
go through them. What's the first thing you need to ask yourself?
What's the process flow? Can I wait?
Okay,
Can I wait? Can I leave my children? They're young.
Do I need to leave children? Do I need to tell a friend that I'm going?
Do I need
I'm not
to
just going to get up and leave. Is the toilet available?
Is the toilet available?
Is there somebody in there?
It's never available.
Have I got time? Because I've got to rush. So what I'm trying to get at here is all these are autonomous, because you don't sit there and start writing, I need a wee, but I need to work out whether I can go or not.
No.
These are done, and the goal or the ending is that you've been for a wee.
It's a decision tree, isn't it? I guess if we think about that, I work in technology, so if you think about that as the autonomous vehicle, it's its set of instructions. But our set of instructions is all up here. And our set of instructions can be influenced obviously by other things, and also can be influenced by how we're feeling, our emotions and anxieties. Can I leave my children? Should I leave my children? Oh, what if something happens? Well, you're just going for a wee, right? You need to bring it back to base camp. But that's how it works, isn't it? So once we've thought about big and small decisions...
Well, the thing with the small decisions is we can get them right. What about slightly more sort of decisions that you have to think about? What about other goals?
The biggies.
But there might still be small goals.
Yeah.
So can you think of like something that you might need to do today before the day is out?
Yeah.
So I would class that as a short-term goal.
Yeah.
But have you thought about how you're going to get there in the right time and making sure that you get that done?
Yeah, like putting the recycling out. Nobody likes missing the bin.
Okay,
Especially when
and
you're
that's
under
not
fault.
autonomous.
No.
So you have to think about the situation. What are the consequences if you don't put the bin out?
Yeah.
What are the consequences if you do? So the consequences if you do is that, as Paul did the other week, he clapped the bin men.
Which was a bit of a slow clap in the bin.
Yeah,
Was a
we'll
misunderstanding.
talk about that on another day.
That was a misunderstanding because I'd gone into coaching, football coaching mode with children.
Clapping the bin men.
So if the bin was left, I'd then be worrying I've upset the bin men. But jokes aside, all of this stuff's running through your head. Well, should I take the bin out now? And it sounds ridiculous, but going back to your question and some sort of practical ways we deal with this, you mentioned goals. We've done loads of work on goals, and you've helped me over the years. And I know the big stuff that I need to do. And we know we've done the kind of 30, 60, 90, and we do that at work, probably many of us, people listening and watching.
But we'll talk about the 30, 60, 90 if you're unsure. It's in the book, but also we'll be talking about it.
And we're coming back to that, shortly. But the other stuff, how can we just stop our minds constantly not being able to deal with this kind of, like a radio dial, I always think, this, all these decisions coming at you. It can be overwhelming, can't it?
Very much so, and that's what I spoke to somebody about this morning, which put it in perspective for that person was, when we have children, or when you're a child, if you don't have children, you can still put this to something else because you might remember it from a child.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're at school. If you got a toy out and you'd finished playing with that toy, you were told, or you do tell your children, make sure you put it away before you get another one.
Tell them. Yeah.
Okay. Now, what happens if they don't put that toy away? They get another one out. What happens if they don't put that one away? They get another one out. And before you know it, they've got 10 or 12 toys out. And have you seen their reaction, or how do you know what your reaction is when all of a sudden you are asked to put all 12 toys away? You become overwhelmed because all of a sudden it becomes a very, very big task. So if you can equate that to being an adult and thinking about, well, I have a decision to make, it's very small, but you then don't do it because it's like, oh, you know what, I haven't got the time, or you make you don't know what the answer is going to be to it. You leave that one. Then there's something else needs doing that day, and you haven't solved the first decision, and another decision and stuff. And this anxiety and these decisions grow. Before you know it, you've got 8 or 9 decisions that are all very small, but when you add them up at the end of the day, they will overwhelm you because you haven't prioritized or done them.
Exactly, and we've all felt overwhelmed by that. We talk about in the book the speed of life. So some of it is to do with our context and going faster and faster. Some of it is just to do with chance and circumstance, whether we make good or bad decisions. But perhaps we can go to first. John, I don't really we want to talk a little bit about the hard stop and just dealing with that moment where people listening or watching are familiar with, as I have myself, and I'm sure you have at times, just getting overwhelmed, too many decisions in the way that you've described, sort of decision fog. How do we step back from that? What's 1 or 2 things that people listening can do to just kind of snap out of that and just to at least give themselves a bit of thinking space?
Well, I think when we talk about the hard stop, the reason why I brought that in, and I'll go back to, and a lot of us have been here, is I remember a situation with my children. The hard stop generally comes around when you have a decision to make and you maybe are slightly emotional, maybe you're slightly angry, maybe your head is a bit foggy, and something happens that tips you over the edge, and it's like, I'm done here. I can't cope. I can't do. And I remember my children. I remember one day coming back from school, and one of them wanted a banana. Went into the kitchen, got them a banana, came back in. The other one went, I want a banana too. Went back into the kitchen. Then the next one said, no, I want it chopping up. Went back into the kitchen. It's like the script of the 2 Ronnies with the 4 candles. If you watch that one where he's going up and down the ladder and over again, and he's just getting more and more stressed about it. So at that moment in time, I was starting to get quite angry. And I thought, if I lose this now, what are the consequences? My children are going to be like, upset over what? But so I actually went into the kitchen and I had 30 seconds hard stop where I literally left the kids in the living room and thought, I need to just stop everything I'm doing, and I need to work out how I'm going to continue with this situation and make some decisions on a small scale as to how I'm going to cope with this. And I very quickly asked myself 4 or 5 questions, like I've just said. Is it making me angry? Why is it making me angry? It's just a banana. How can I deal with this better? What will happen if I shout my children? What is the end result? What is the consequences?
Yeah.
And by the time I'd asked myself those questions, I'd calm down just enough to go in and be able to continue and make the right decision.
Exactly, and to get yourself in that state, I've found with other people, and I think a lot of us will be familiar with this, seeing maybe a partner, a friend, even a colleague, where they can see that's happening, and you observe that and say, right, do you just want 5 minutes? We say, don't we?
Yeah.
Do you just want 5 minutes? Or it's kind of like enforced time out. Well, if you can do that with yourself in the way that John's described, it gives you that mental space. Physically take yourself out. If you can, I mean, if your children are in a room, that's fine, they're safe, you know, you're not leaving them in the street. For those without children, it doesn't matter. Take yourself out of that situation, physically and mentally, give yourself the time and space, have the self-dialogues that John's talking about there, and then you're into that kind of rational, calm, and a bit of acceptance sometimes as well. And one of our things to talk about is wiping the slate clean. If you've been in a situation of conflict, you're not going to be thinking clearly. So that's maybe the other part of it, is just wipe the slate clean and just calm your head a little bit, do you think?
I mean, yeah, we hear in the past all the time about people talking about take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Count to 10.
Yeah, exactly.
All this kind of thing. It's the same kind of principle because we all come across, and we're not just talking about people with children, we all come across situations where we have to make quite what we call, and this is in the book, we call it snap decisions. It could be that something has turned up, you have to be reactive. There's no practice allowed. It could be something that needs to be done in 10 minutes. It can be, I once had a burst water pipe in my garage at home. I got back and I'm like, what am I going to do? And you imagine, you see all these comedies about putting your thumb in it and North's trying to stop, but that's not going to happen.
Keep the screw in it.
So sometimes if you can't see the wood for the trees in terms of what you need to do, you just walk away and you make sure it's like, nothing serious is happening, I just need to think about this.
Yeah.
Because we all deal with these emotional moments where it's sort of like, what am I going to do? It's like a panic.
Yeah.
The panic switch kicks in, the adrenaline kicks in,
adrenaline, stress
and you
hormones
can't
kick in.
think about what's right and what's wrong at that moment in time.
So you've got to buy yourself a bit of time there. I guess another thing that you allude to there that's really important, which leads on to, we want to talk a little bit about good decisions and bad decisions. A bad decision might come from the fact that, let's say you're in a situation of conflict, as we all are, unfortunately, in time to time in our lives, much as we try and avoid them. And we might not have a mental model for dealing with that. We certainly find it in our work environments that we might never have done something before, and it might be a really important decision we have to make. We might have been put in a position of power. And it's not saying that you're going to be reckless, but sometimes we all get decisions wrong. We talked in a previous episode about blame culture. This isn't blame culture. This isn't abdication of responsibility or not understanding what accountability is. This is just, I made the best decision I could with the information I had, and I didn't have a mental model of how to deal with that.
No.
What are your thoughts on that, John?
Well, I mean, we talk about good and bad decisions. Well, do we really, I mean, longer term or medium to long term decisions, really you've got the time to address whether it's a good or bad decision to a degree. It might still be that you're not sure. You look at both pros and cons and think, I'm really not sure. But sometimes it's worth making that decision anyway, to just go with it, as long as it's not going to let anybody down. For example, I bought a camper van. I went on about it, and I went on about, I could really do with a camper van. I wasn't sure whether I was going to like it. In the end, I made the decision to buy it. But in the end, 6 months later, I got rid of it because it wasn't for me. Did I feel bad about making that decision? No, I didn't, because otherwise I'd still be sat here saying, well, I should have done that camper van. So I think it's about, if you don't do things, then the chances are you might regret it, to make those decisions. So is there good and bad decisions? They're just decisions, aren't there? It could be what you make at the right time, but it's interesting that it's good to have a little bit more methodology to make a better decision. So you don't know whether it's going to be good or bad at the time. What you want is you need to make it a better decision by following certain guidelines. What are the consequences of me doing it or not doing it? We all weigh up pros and cons, but we need to probably go a little bit deeper into how we're going to deal with these decisions.
And beyond that, maybe a bit of acceptance that we did the best we could at the time. And also, the old saying that, somebody who's, it's maybe a bit harsh to say, somebody who's stupid is the definition is somebody that does something wrong and keeps doing it. Well, that's probably just willful sort of, ignorance maybe, or just an act of not wanting to accept something for me. So I've found acceptance can be very, very important as well, in terms of just accepting that I've got something wrong, stepping back, as you say, and then after the event, having that self-dialogue, and just saying, excuse me, just saying, I didn't get it right there. How can I learn from that? Rather, I didn't get it right there, and what if I get it wrong again? And what are the consequences, and what have I done?
Well, you can always learn, can't you? You can always learn. You should be able to learn from any decision you make if it doesn't go how you want it to. The main thing is, when we talk about this, is we're not saying, right, it doesn't matter if I make the worst decision in the world that's going to affect everybody, and go, oh well, never mind. Yes. You should still be able to have a good enough common sense to understand that there are certain decisions that you just don't make just willfully.
Yes.
You need to be able to understand the consequences. That's a big thing that I say to my clients. Making decisions is fine, but what are the consequences if you make certain decisions? How many people will you let down, and to what scale? Are you being very, very selfish with a decision that's going to upset a lot of people? We could talk about that in the world at the moment, couldn't we, with certain situations?
We could, and that's nuanced, that's hard as well, because you then think, well, sometimes, especially in the work context, we have had to be assertive, versus actually a situation where you really need to seek counsel and or defer, because as you said there, you've had that dialogue, you think there are consequences, and also you have people around you who are happy to give you advice. Now that advice or counsel or feedback may be a mixed bag, and that's where it gets a little bit difficult. So how do you have that confidence?
The thing is, advice is a funny one, because if you had 100 friends and you've asked them all, I've got this coming up, what do you all think? You might get 100 different pieces of advice.
That's what I mean, yeah.
But really, it's about maybe take parts from each of them, maybe somebody out of all that advice, and it's about what resonates with you to make the right decision in your heart of hearts.
Yeah.
Really, it's not about, the biggest thing is, everybody can all say, lots of people will say, I'll tell you what you should do. This is, that's fine, but does it resonate with you? Following somebody else's advice or model of the world might not necessarily be the right thing for you. And that's when you then start to blame, because, well, they told me to do that. So you have that. So we link that in with the last sort of podcast we did about blame. That all of a sudden you're not following your own advice, you're starting to take other people's. You're
disempowering yourself, you're not being true to yourself either, because you do need to have that confidence. I think another thing that we're going to talk about was procrastination, as you said earlier.
But first, before we go to that, we want to go back to, because one of the things we want to get into this podcast is, we do talk a lot anyway, but we want to talk about some of the toolkits that we can use. So when we spoke about the hard stop, if you are unsure about how to do a hard stop, here's something for you to do the next time. One of the massive things you think about is road rage. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of anger in the world at the moment. And if you feel that sort of situation is overwhelming you, whatever it is that's out there, I want you to take that hard stop and try 30 seconds where you just stop what you're doing. If your teenage daughter is having a massive go at you, just say to her, I'm going to the toilet. 30 seconds, you don't even have to go to the toilet, you just sit there and think, right, 30 seconds, what do I need to do to overcome this? And just calm yourself down by asking yourself questions. The hard stop, as we call it, might be a little bit longer than that. So that's one of the things. The other thing that we spoke about now is we're going to talk about is procrastination. We've got a big toolkit for this.
It is. I think it just links on to the practical tip that you gave there, John, which is sometimes with children, sometimes with certain people, personality types, and the rest in life. We seek to minimise the amount of decisions that maybe our children need to make for various reasons, or even adults need to make. At the end of the day, I think there's a difference between that and what we talked about a minute ago, which is just not making any decisions, just kind of floating along.
So why do we do that? Is it confidence? Is it a lack of confidence? Do you think that people won't make decisions? Because I know people that in my life that struggle to make decisions quite a lot. I mean, is it the lack of confidence? Is it a worry about how it's going to turn out if they do make what they think is the wrong decision?
Yeah, I think it is almost. It's fear and inertia. I think some of it, in my case, is caused by a kind of perfection anxiety. The perfect storm is where we create very over-engineered, complex lives, and we've talked about, is complex good, is simplicity good? Well, actually, we're trying to get a line down the middle. Often in our modern busy lives, we're making things more complicated, we're giving ourselves more decisions. And at the end of the day, we're only human. The volume of decisions that we have to deal with, if that's going up and up and up, then that can be incongruous with people who are fearful of making the wrong decision. Maybe not on the surface, but really down beneath, deep inside they're fearful, or they have limiting beliefs, which is, I know, something you do a lot of work with your clients as well.
So do you think we're talking really about getting people that are afraid to make decisions to understand and not procrastinate? Because I do this quite a lot, because procrastination a lot of the time comes from lack of confidence. From what I can see from people that I coach, lack of confidence in their own ability to just get on with things and making those decisions. And then the worry builds, the anxiety builds. So it's a vicious circle, because once the anxiety builds, they've got even less chance of making those decisions because they're anxious already before they've even started. And those worries grow. It could be the smallest of things that they need to make a decision over, and they don't know what to do, so they leave it. And then, like we said earlier in the podcast, they have another decision to make on top of that because they haven't made the first decision. So the second decision has to be linked to before you know it, they're in a mess, because this grows and grows and grows. It can be something as small as making a decision for themselves about even just going to the gym that night. I really should go to the gym. Well, firstly, you should be needing to go to the gym, not should. But more importantly, what's stopping you going to the gym? Well, nothing really. But then again, have I got time? I've got to get in the car. Is it going to be busy? I've got, all these questions are then brought to this person. Before they know it, they've just said, you know what? It's too much for me to deal with. I haven't got the confidence to make this kind of decision. So I'm just going to leave it. And then they end up leaving all decisions. So they oversimplify their lives. So
I guess the toolkit, just go back to actual practical ideas of how viewers and listeners can deal with that. We always talk about breaking that down and having that self-dialogue, but mainly, don't completely minimise the amount of, or certainly not eliminate. Nobody can eliminate the amount of decisions, but let's just take that, the gym. Don't just say, well, I'm not going to do anything.
So prime example I give to people is, after watching this today, in the next 24 hours, unless you don't see anybody whatsoever, and even if you don't, you'll most probably see your family, parents, children, teachers, work people, whatever. Typically, somebody is going to ask you a question, and they're going to ask you to make a decision. It could be something very small. It could be, could you make us a cup of tea, please? And at that time, ask, as soon as that question's asked, think about breaking it down and thinking, right, if I make this cup of tea for this person, how long is it going to take me? What will I gain from it? What will I lose if I don't? And before you know it, there's a possibility that you will get that done, because you'll notice that there's a reward at the end of it, either because you're helping somebody else, or you're helping yourself, or you feel good about the fact that you've done something and it's ticked off. Otherwise, it's still going to be hanging over you.
Exactly. I tell you what, that's the gateway to seeing the bigger picture. We talk about, and this we talk about at the start of the book, is seeing your life on the TV screen, not in a weird way, not in the zoning out of reality, but actually seeing it as kind of chess pieces. And that's not a cynical way to think about life. Just having that clarity of thought to think about your decisions in that way and step back, step out of it for a minute can be really powerful, can't it?
Yeah, and I think, like we said, I deal quite a lot with procrastination. It's a big sort of topic with a lot of my clients, because I deal quite a lot with young men who've got like ADHD or neurodivergent, and it's quite easy for them to zone out and really they do procrastinate a lot, a lot of the people I work with. And what we try and do is to try to create a toolkit. So every time there's a thing, and this is really good for you to think about, is think about the things that need to be done. We call it the 30-day, okay? And if you think about the next 30 days, or you could do this as a 7-day thing. So in the next 7 days, or 7 to 14 days, write down 1 to 10 down the side of a piece of paper and write down all the things that you can think of that you are procrastinating over. What are the things that you're putting off? Is there an unpaid parking fine to pay? Have you got to send an email to someone that if they don't get back to them, then you're going to get yourself into a bit of trouble because you haven't sent them anything. Think about it. It could be the smallest thing, it could be something, but if you think what needs to be done and then put them in priority order and put a timeline on them. Some of them can take 5 minutes. And it's like, right, this is going to take 5 minutes, tick it off.
Yeah, get it done. Break it down.
Yeah, because one of the things I always speak to people about as well is what... If you remember that feeling that you've had from time to time, if you're going to be late for the bus or you're going to be late for school or late for work, you have that panicky feeling. Try and create some urgency. So make it feel like I must get this done, otherwise I'm going to get into trouble. Yeah,
it's true. You know, I remember doing my change management exams years ago, and I always remember the first thing it said about any major program of work, you know, create a sense of urgency. A little bit artificially, not to upset people, but just to get a little bit of...
Make it feel like this has to be done. And if I don't do it, what are the consequences? Because it's back to consequences again.
You feel great afterwards though.
Yeah.
You've done these things.
I mean, if you can, however you do it, sometimes I work with my people with a whiteboard. How nice is it to just wipe those off when you've done them? You know, you might have done it at work or put a line through all the jobs, get to the end of the day and it's like, I've done everything I need to today and I feel great about it.
Yeah.
But what's worse is looking down and thinking, I've not done any of that and it needed doing today.
And then compounds.
Then you think, well, I'm gonna have to get it started in the morning. But what about all the other things you've got to do the next day on top?
And then the thought of it becomes even bigger than the actions.
But start with the small things. Start with the very small things. Somebody asks you a question, is there any way you could sort this out? And think, well, it's only going to take me 10 minutes. Let's just get it done now. Let's not mess about. Let's just get it done. Create that sense of urgency in your stomach.
Yeah, fantastic. So you've got a couple of practical toolkits there. And I guess the final question, you're going to like this, Pon, is did viewers decide to watch this video all the way to the end? Because if they did, they will know that they can get in touch with us, like and subscribe. We've got all the goodies. We're interested to know, where do you listen to us? Where do you make your decision whether to listen to or watch this podcast? Stick it in the comments. If you haven't decided to get to the end, then our decisions.
Well, we're just talking to ourselves if you haven't got to decide.
Which is fine, really. I think you've probably guessed so far that we're quite happy doing that.
Yeah, we just like to get off our chest, don't we?
You know, and it saves other loved ones from having to suffer us. But jokes aside, thank you for watching and listening. Hopefully that was useful. As we said,
make those decisions.
Make a decision and don't put them off. And we look forward to joining you on the next episode. Until then, see you later.
Bye-bye.